Does everybody remember where they were when Osama bin Laden was captured and killed? When you heard that news?
No, I don't.
I can't say that I do. I vaguely remember hearing the news. Do you remember?
Oh, I do, because it was very unusual. It was an anomaly. It wasn't Raw, but it was one of those wrestling, what was it? One of the WWE events in Tampa, and John Cena was performing. So inside Amalie Arena, it's really hard to get notifications on your phone.
Yeah, I hope you were there covering it and not attending it.
No, I was attending. And so he came out and ran out on stage. It was my first big wrestling event, WWE event. So he runs out at the end of the show and goes, "You guys aren't going to believe this. We caught and killed Osama bin Laden." And in my mind, I go, wow, this pageantry at this wrestling really gets crazy. They get all these kooky storylines in. I mean, just when you think the show's over, this guy comes out with a new storyline. But it was true.
What did the audience do?
Everyone had the same sort of confused feel, like, what's going on here? And we couldn't get the information on our phones right away. But then you saw once you left the event. So there was a lot of fanfare for that. Not as much this weekend.
No, I mean, the media doesn't want to cover this at all. I mean, it should be a huge story, shouldn't it? I mean, it should be all we're talking about today. Not everybody watches the news on Sunday mornings. You know what I mean? A lot of people do church and other things. Sunday's kind of sometimes an off day, a day to do yard work maybe, do things around the house. It's not necessarily a day where you're fully plugged into what's going on all day long, like most people are. Monday through Friday at work, they've got their Facebook on in the background, or they check their sites occasionally throughout the day, so they stay fairly connected during the week. But you might miss it if it just comes out on Sunday, and I'm just shocked that the media isn't, actually I take that back. I'm really not shocked. I'm not shocked because this is par for the course for the media. You wouldn't expect them to allow President Trump any kind of a victory whatsoever, and this is just par for the course. I mean, this is just what they've been doing for 3 years to the guy. How do
you feel about him not telling the Speaker of the House?
Oh, I think it's perfect. I think it's perfectly appropriate. And hey, you know what, Nancy? Maybe it was talked about in that meeting that you stormed out of, so theatrically. You know what I mean? Now, I don't necessarily think it was, but when you can't even sit in a meeting like an adult and have a little bit of respect for the office of the president, we get it. We totally get that you don't respect Donald Trump. I mean, that couldn't be more apparent. But you should respect the office of the president, and to stand up in a meeting involving the president, some members of the cabinet, a lot of military leaders, and to wag your finger at the president and storm out of a meeting, that's just childish behavior from a woman who should know better. I mean, to me, I'm just, again, I'm offended by that type of behavior, at the inability to control yourself. And now she's up in arms and she's upset that she wasn't told. Well, I don't think she should have been told. I mean, the way that she's behaved, the way that Adam Schiff has behaved, the way that Chuck Schumer has behaved, I mean, there's no need for them to know this in advance. I think generally the less people who know in advance, the better. I mean, you don't want this information getting out through a back channel. You certainly don't want Baghdadi and his guys getting any kind of a heads up. Now, I wouldn't say, and I would never think that Adam Schiff or Nancy Pelosi would put in a call to give them a heads up or anything like that. That, I think, as offensive as they are, I don't think they would go that far. I could be wrong. But as offensive as they are, I don't think they would go that far.
Better be safe than
But
sorry.
you never know who they might tell who then might do that. I mean, because we have, if you remember back to the blind sheikh, you remember him up in New York? Abdel Rahman, I think. The full name's kind of slipping my mind at this point. It's been too long since I've thought about him, and that's a good thing. I mean, you don't want to think about these people, but his lawyer at the time was essentially acting as a courier for him and sharing information back with his associates back in the home countries about what, the information that he wanted to get to them. So, these people that are involved are not all, in the right frame of mind. Some of them and I don't know that it's not really the Stockholm syndrome, but they really start to identify with the bad guys.
Well, Baghdadi.
Baghdadi.
He had a mole.
Apparently he had a mole. That's right. They apparently, which you got to love. And there may be another angle to this story that we're not getting. And, of course, we're not going to get a lot of information on this because already the president's come out. He gave a real nice 10-minute speech, what I thought was a pretty succinct and compact
and
review
compelling
of what had happened, and then he took questions. And I heard some of the commentators saying how he talked for a long time about it. I thought he was very succinct. I thought he really just hit the high points of the raid. He's obviously, believes that this is one of his administration's victories, and people should see it as such. And, who could be against this, right? Do you remember the kind of things that ISIS was doing to people? Mm-hmm. For a while there, they were the most horrifying terrorist organization on the face of the planet.
Tens of thousands were killed.
Maybe more, because the great uncounted masses that were killed, the Christians in Syria and Iraq, and you look at the numbers of Christians in those countries, and you just kind of compare the numbers, and you go back 10 years and you go back 20 years, and you look at it, where did those people go? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who now apparently don't exist. Now, have they converted? I don't know. What's happened to them? My suspicion and what we all have, heard is that the ISIS fighters were slaughtering them, literally going door to door. If you had a village that was Christian, just kill everybody in the village. They're infidels. And of course, none of that was tracked. Nobody knows how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Christians were killed in Iraq and northern Syria. All we know is those populations simply don't exist anymore. But what we did see at the time were some of these beheadings, where they put the people in the orange jumpsuits and they march them out. And, I don't know that I ever saw one of those videos. You did, didn't you, Pat? You watched
I did.
One or two of them.
Oh, yes.
You said it was pretty horrifying.
It's worse than a movie.
Yeah.
You won't even see that in a movie. It's just terrible. But they did find a lot of documents.
They found documents, and they also employed a robot on standby if they needed a robot in the tunnel. In case he detonated, in case Baghdadi detonated, then they would have that robot standing by to go in. Interesting.
So we're seeing the incorporation of robotics, and soon I think we'll start to see artificial intelligence in the battlefield sphere.
Oh, that's happening soon.
And, it's interesting because as they described it, they came into this compound, and I don't know. I personally don't think that the Green Berets and the Delta Force get enough credit. The SEALs kind of get all the credit. I love the SEALs. I love all the military groups. I think they're great. But the Green Berets and the Delta Force, the Green Berets are really impressive, and they hardly ever get mentioned. Delta Force is, even a step beyond the Green Berets in terms of training and requirements. And, of course, they were secret for a long time, but they've been known about for, over 30 years now. So, but they are the ones that handled this particular raid, which I just thought was kind of cool. So it wasn't the SEALs like bin Laden. Now this is the Army that came in and did this. So, and I also understand the Rangers were involved in the raid as well, another elite Army unit. So they came in, though, and instead of going through the doors of the compound, they basically blew off the walls because they knew the doors were booby-trapped, apparently. Now, I don't know how. How do you booby-trap a door? How do you get in and out of your compound? I guess there must have been a secret door or something, but...
Thank you to the mole.
Yeah.
Probably told him that.
I like how Trump says when he's describing this, he says, yes, they blew a hole in the wall. This is just a beautiful hole in this tunnel. Did you hear that? He loves the word beautiful.
He does love the word beautiful.
A beautiful dog was injured.
He's got some, he's got some, verbal crutches that he relies on from time to time as he's composing his speech as he talks. But anyway, they apparently got pretty much everybody in the compound to surrender. Anybody who didn't immediately surrender, they shot. But they were able to save all of the children except for Baghdadi's 3 children, who he took with him down into the tunnel. Now, if you remember this, we've killed Baghdadi a few times. I mean, this has been announced a few times that we have killed him, or he was killed in an airstrike or something like that.
But he wasn't.
And obviously he wasn't if we killed him this weekend. So, the Russians are kind of out saying, well, maybe you did and maybe you didn't. I tend to think that this was real. I tend to think that they somehow got confirmation that they killed him, because the story could have been, if they were just making up a story, I don't know that they would have made up the story in the way that they told it.
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.